My name is Pritesh. I manage the partner business at Nuaware, Snyk's preferred EMEA distribution partner. I'm based in Dubai, in UAE. Although we have coverage across the regions and we cover the Snyk partnership across EMEA, you will see in subsequent slides the extent of our and coverage of our team as well. Today's session is primarily to introduce you to Snyk as one of our latest partnerships in the developer/application security space. Before we start with that, just wanted to spend a few minutes to cover the background story of what our technology landscape looks like and where Snyk fits in the ecosystem. To start off with, the first real area of focus that we had as a company back when we started in 2016 was cloud native infrastructure. So as a company, we put our foothold in the cloud, mainly in the DevOps and DevSecOps space back then. But everything that had to do with containers, Kubernetes, that is where we started. At the bottom, you see some of the roles across customer organizations which we cater to when we talk about cloud native infrastructure. I will talk about the technology subsequently on the slides as I finish this one. The second most natural movement for us was how do we delve into cloud native security, because as and when DevOps, containers, microservices, etc. became mainstream, the natural question was, okay, how do you secure this, because you can't do it the way you used to do it in the legacy way, shape, or form. And that's where today's subject is also going to be very, very important. And last but not the least, we're seeing a lot of organizations, especially the ones who are fully in the cloud and running all sorts of microservices, even serverless for that matter, build resilience. So how do you observe your cloud? How do you monitor what's going on? Are you able to respond to incidents and stuff like that, collecting metrics, data, etc. So a little bit of a different view to look at this path from a technology perspective. So I'm sure if you've been used to or familiar with the DevOps space and DevSecOps space, this might be one of the most overused graphs that you would have seen in your time. And to tie this to what I presented earlier, we started our journey with the containerization space. So the two logos you see right here in the center, which is Docker and Docker Enterprise, as it used to be called, now acquired by a company called Mirantis. These are the two flavors of container technologies we work with. But again, it's very agnostic to what sort of cloud is being run in the background. So it could be public, it could be private, it could be a combination of both. That's why you see that containers right in the center of both the clouds, when it comes to access and microservices and stuff like that. Naturally, we progressed to what we wanted to do with security, and HashiCorp was one of our key partnerships in that space. Right now, we are able to confidently say that we are able to cover the zero trust message as far as Kubernetes and the likes of human to machine access or machine to machine access, or even service mesh and service discovery, etc. is concerned. So all of these three things put together is what actually covers the zero trust portfolio for HashiCorp. On the automation side, we work with a couple of technologies, one from Hashi and one from a company called LaunchDarkly, primarily to cover infrastructure automation, workflow management, etc., but also going a step beyond and trying to automate the process of releases and how you have experimentation and feature flags automated as a process. So this space is always constantly evolving, but these are our go-to products in the automation space. The next bit is what we are going to cover with Snyk, so I won't spend too much time, but in a nutshell, when you look at what Snyk does in subsequent slides with Paul and Alex, you will soon realize that it's all a journey within the cloud, right from the time when the code is built and written, all the time it's till the time it's running into production. We partnered with the runtime container security platform back in the day with Sysdig. Now it has a full coverage of cloud native application protection, which means security posture management, workload protection as well, cloud infrastructure entitlement management, detecting what's wrong with configurations in the cloud, etc., is all under the umbrella of Sysdig. Interesting point is that if you are a company already utilizing one such tool in the space of CNAP, Snyk has some very strong integrations with the likes of Sysdig to sort of extend that message left and cover whatever Sysdig does not cover towards the left side of the chart. Lastly, in the observability space, we have a couple of notable names, PagerDuty and New Relic, where we cover observability, incident response, and stuff like that. And lastly, we partner for resilience with Gremlin for chaos engineering to make sure that your system is disaster or fail free as far as your infrastructure setup is concerned. So that's the technology landscape. Just a quick word on what our capabilities are on the training and product certification side. So mainly three areas. Conceptually, we do a lot of trainings, whether it's associated with DevOps or DevSecOps. You'll see a lot of communication coming from us for those kind of things, because back in the day, not a lot of people were invested in this area. We also cover product training for all the technologies that you saw on the previous slide. And we also advise partners on the learning path and what the certification should look like, whether it's sales, pre-sales, etc. Right. Lastly, this is a snapshot of what our customer base looks like. Overall, partial list of customers, depending on what technologies they bought from us in those regions. And this is our team as far as the partner development is concerned. So Chris covering UK and I, Antonio in DACH and South, myself based in Middle East, Amruta covering Asia, and Roshni who covers our marketing. So this is a quick 5 minutes from me. With this, I hand over to Paul, who can start the presentation for Snyk. Over to you, Paul.
Excellent. Thank you very much. And it's great to be part of the Nuaware stable. You know, a distributor that actually understands the technology and how to put them all together to create these customer solutions is valuable to us, as well as the rest of the vendors in that stable. And today I just wanted to introduce you to the Snyk portfolio, which we believe is quite an exciting opportunity to either solve more of your existing customer problems, or in fact reach customers that you've not been able to solve problems to before. And that's around application security, cloud native security, and as we call it, developer first security. But first, let me introduce you to the team that you would be speaking to if you do meet with us. First of all, Alex, who's on the call, would you like just to introduce yourself?
Yes, thanks, Paul. And hi, everyone. So I'm Alex Warner-Wilson. So I am one of the channel leads here at Snyk, and I look after our North EMEA partnerships. So I'm one of many, many friendly faces in the channel team to be essentially the main point of contact for our partners alongside Nuaware moving forward. We do have a global reach with our channel leads across the world. So please reach out after the webinar if you do have any questions. But thanks, everyone, for joining.
Excellent. And we've also got Carl in South and Central EMEA, who's not able to join the call today, but I work with both of them as the Partner Solutions Engineer, helping people understand the platform, build it into their sales motions, and if we go so far, to also build it into the service offerings as well. Okay, so what is Snyk? As I mentioned before, that word, developer first, cloud native application security platform. Now, we say developer first because that's the way we believe an organization can truly scale their security effort. Before, it was mainly just the security team thinking about security. But as the developers are the people actually in the code, developing the code, you can actually achieve greater scale if you also include them in that security. So everything that we do in the Snyk platform is thinking about, first of all, what are the activities that a developer's doing? During them activities, how can we help them make the right security decisions? And if they've made the wrong one, how can we teach them and help them make better decisions going forward as well? So it's all about that developer first application security. And one thing of note, this is now being seen as a major trend, as a major actual component of the security efforts of an enterprise. And recently we were named by both Gartner and Forrester in the leader quadrant. Now, in and of itself, it's just a small kind of award. But what that means is CISOs and CTOs now can choose a platform like Snyk without having to think, oh, it's just a challenger. It might not be here in a few years. It might be superseded by another platform. Now, as being leaders, we are not just only the obvious choice, but also the easy choice for CISOs and CTOs to make. So let's think about how people considered security before we started to think about that developer security. Well, first of all, if we look at the first three pillars, IT infrastructure, endpoint, identity, and access management. People used to think that if I've got my infrastructure sorted, the access to my infrastructure and all the endpoints secure, then I'm fine because I know that nothing can be penetrated within my infrastructure. But the thing is, you can have all three of those set up. But if you put a container that's vulnerable up there, if you put some open source that's vulnerable up in that infrastructure, or the code that you are writing is insecure, then actually that infrastructure can be penetrated, your applications and data can be lost. So we really need to think about all four of these. Yes, all four are important, and Snyk doesn't cover the IT infrastructure, endpoint, and identity and access management. But we do cover what you're making, your applications, the open source containers, to make sure they're secure as they go up on that infrastructure. And that's a really important point, because that means that we're there to help customers who are actively developing their own applications. Now, think about this. Every company pretty much has IT infrastructure. They're hosting either somebody else's software or some services on that. Then, therefore, they'll need endpoint and identity. Really, what Snyk is looking at is a subset of those who also develop their own application. But that is a subset that's growing heavily. Almost everybody realizes the business value and efficiency that you can gain by creating your own applications, kind of suited towards your exact business, but they're also a competitive advantage as well. So when we're thinking about customers, it's people who are actively developing their own platform. Okay, going a bit more into the technicals, but not too far, I promise you. What Snyk actually covers when we're looking at the application is the code that the developers are writing, the open source that they include in the application as well. Now, did you know that about 90% of the lines of code in a modern application come from open source? That means the developers of your customers are actually only coding about 10%, the business logic, the way it looks and feels and moves. But underneath all of that, about 90% is from open source. So we really need a scalable solution to understand what's in there and what's vulnerable. Of course, Snyk, we're telling you today, is that solution. Again, once you've got your application, you then put it on a container. Snyk can scan that container and make sure there's no vulnerabilities. When we've got that whole container packaged, usually that goes up to using infrastructure as code onto the cloud, a Kubernetes cluster, EKS, for instance, something like that. And again, we can help with that infrastructure as code. But the thing is, all of those tasks are actually tasks done by the developer. Perhaps in some cases, we'd have a separate DevOps team or infrastructure team, but the developer still touches those parts of the application. Every time they make a change, they might update a container to add a new component, or they might change and add a new load balancer onto the infrastructure as code. So really, as the developers understanding these things, they want to actually make changes. We're there to make sure they make them in the right way. So let's just look at a typical developer's workflow. And here, this is to understand that Snyk is not just a point solution, helping security at one point. We really are integrated across the whole developer experience. We have a phrase at Snyk, and it's meet the developers where they work. That means we don't want them to use an extra tool. We don't want them to have to log in somewhere and use a separate platform. We want them to, within the tools that they're using and the workflows that they're using, get this security intelligence, enable them to make the right decisions. Okay, so we go into a customer, first of all, and they'll have existing applications. Usually always have existing applications unless they're a very new startup. So what's the first thing we do? Well, we integrate with the SCM tool. That's the source code management tool. You'll have heard of a lot of these, the GitHubs, the GitLabs, the Bitbuckets, things like that. And we'll scan those repositories and understand the current state. We'll look for the code, the open source, the containers, and the infrastructure as code. But what then happens? Well, a developer comes to work and they have to create a new feature. So they check that code out to their local machine and they start coding away, usually with their headphones on, not a care in the world. So what we can do is we can integrate into that environment on their local machine as well in the IDE, like Visual Studio Code, IntelliJ, a whole raft of those applications. And that means as they're being creative, as they're creating the code, Snyk helps them make the right decisions. If they've made a security vulnerability, they can fix it right there. And then once they've finished creating that piece of code, they then push it back to the repository. And again, we can check that, what they're called pull requests, which is just basically when people are collaborating, they're all pushing their changes to this same central repository. We're checking each one of those to make sure no one's adding any new vulnerabilities. And this is part of what's called shift left. If we can fix things earlier, if we can fix things before they've been committed, then we can actually do it a lot more cheaply than doing it later on. So that shift left is really an important kind of message to bring to your customers. Snyk can help with that with the platform. Okay, what usually happens after we do this PR check? Well, perhaps an automated CI or CD build will be kicked off, which Snyk again can integrate with, and we can actually fail builds to make sure no new vulnerabilities are sent live to your cloud environment. Again, helping the scale. It's not just manual tests that you want to do. You want to make sure that your pipelines are set up to make sure you don't become vulnerable as you're pushing new features up to your applications. And again, we can integrate into your artifact registry or container registries to continue scanning those. Now, you may say, if we're scanning in all of those early places, why bother with the last? Well, even if your containers are not changing, there's hundreds of new vulnerabilities found every day. So we continue to scan even unchanging code to highlight as soon as new vulnerabilities are found as well. Again, that's another factor in scale. We don't have to think about scanning our existing code every day. Snyk automatically does it, and it highlights and shows you when we found new vulnerabilities. And then what we do, we can integrate into your live cloud environments as well. But everything that we do in these stages all ties back to an action that a developer must take to actually secure that code as well. So that's basically what the Snyk platform does, looking at the applications, helping the developers. And what we want to enable is people to continue to develop fast, because that's their competitive edge, but do that in a secure way, because hacks can cost a lot of money. Hacks can cost loss of reputation, and they can really slow a business down in things like cloud adoption, in things like developing new features. So it's all about that observability. In fact, Snyk's name is an acronym for So Now You Know. And what we want to show people is that you need to know everything that's happening in your application. You need to understand that in a way that means you can remediate the problems as well. So yeah, just remember that Snyk's name, so now you know. So again, try not to get too technical. What we want to think about is, are the customers that you're speaking to actively developing applications? Are those applications critical to their business and revenue? Have they got competition that they need to fight against? Do they need to develop faster to gain that competitive edge? If so, Snyk would be brilliant, would really help them in achieving those goals. Will help them to keep creating iterations on them applications in a secure way, therefore stay ahead of that competition. And that's really the only message I want to bring from the platform. You don't need to understand it at a too technical depth at the moment, as I'll go on to show later. We just need to think about actually which customers can we help, perhaps who have not helped in the past, or we've already helped with some of the Nuaware suite of vendors. Okay, so what we always do at Snyk is speak to our customers and try and understand the value that they're actually getting from these applications, because that's where the rubber hits the road. It's okay saying what we do, but we always speak to our customers every year, get updates from them to understand what's going on. And our latest customer value report, which you can go online and actually get a copy of. One of the best things that came out of that was the return on investment in terms of number of developers. We spoke to 2,900 customers, as it says here, and the average saving, and we did this by time that developers took to create features, by the time that was lost in previous iterations due to security vulnerabilities stopping applications going live. The average full-time equivalent saved was 30. Now, you just think how much 30 developers costs in this day and age. You know, they all think they're superstars. They want these high wages, stock options, all of this. So if we can save a customer 30 FTE, that's really going to help their business, help them be more competitive, and help them stay ahead of their competition. Now, one way to think about it is the cost saving of the FTE. But the other way to think about it is, yes, we've got 30 FTE that can now be deployed doing something different. They can be deployed on new sprints. Perhaps they can be deployed on research. But all in all, that's going to help the business with the same size of resources be more competitive going forward. Now, not to labor a point, but I thought I'd bring up Forrester and Gartner as well, because the reason here is it's not just the analysts, it's the customers who are also saying this, because it's all based off customer feedback. Whether we're getting the customer feedback, which you might think is probably friendly because they want a renewal cheaper next year or something like that, who knows? But this is gained independently. So the fact that customers are seeing value and are actually able to develop those applications faster, as shown by Gartner and Forrester, among others, is really important. So if we can lead with this when we're talking to the customers, hey, we are now working with the leader in the space in this field. If you're serious about wanting to develop faster, if you're serious about your applications, then let's speak to Snyk, and we can always then set up a conversation to talk more about that. Okay, so if we look at the people who perhaps you're speaking to at the moment, now, we do say that Snyk is developer first, but the thing is the developers don't often hold the budget. So often you're speaking to people like CISOs and CTOs. So we need to think from their point of view, how's Snyk helping them? Or in fact, first of all, what are the problems that they're trying to resolve? So for both of them, first and highest on that priority is risk reduction. CTOs have also got automation. But then they go down to quite a different list. So CISOs, again, it's that compliance, the frameworks that I need to be compliant to, perhaps the fees if I'm not compliant to these, or the cost of being compliant. And the CTOs, it's about that developer productivity. We want to complete or build our applications and move them forward as fast as we can. So we can think about the top priorities for these CISOs. And this, in fact, is not related to Snyk. This was a kind of separate report where we found out just really what they're thinking about, what keeps them up at night, what they're trying to change as they join a business in those roles. But then we went and for a different set, actually found out how Snyk can help in each of those areas as well. So as you're having those discovery conversations with those personas, these are some very useful key metrics to pull out. So if we're talking about ROI savings in that risk reduction space, we're talking about 21 FTE, and the 9 FTE is saved in that developer productivity. That's just the number broken down from before. So if we're speaking about risk reduction, there's a huge number of developers we can save in that space. If we're talking about compliance, then Snyk has got 13 common standards built into the platform. We can look at your cloud platform and we can help determine which of those that relate to software. Obviously, these compliance frameworks are wider than just your software. But when they relate to your software, we can say, are you compliant within the software that you're building there? And then the automation on the right-hand side. Now, when tests don't become, oh, I must remember to scan for vulnerabilities, when they're automatic, when they're tuned, when they're within the context of the application, that's when you can really start not forgetting, but stopping to have to think about security, but it's built into the process. So we can increase that automation by 70%. And there's a lot of others as well on this slide. I don't really want to go through them all, but these are good points, and you will get these slides afterwards as well, that you can really help when you're having those discovery conversations with the personas aforementioned. Okay, so let's say you've thought, Snyk sounds great, let's work together. What is that going to look like really from our point of view? Well, we kind of follow, it's not too rigorous, but we like to follow a few different steps. The first thing is let's meet, let's understand each other. How can we work together? How does Snyk fit into your current portfolio? Are you providing services on top of the vendors currently? And perhaps it might be something like Sysdig, where we have a great integration. How can we take that to market, either to your existing Sysdig customers or together as an option to a new customer? We then meet and do sales training. This sales training is understanding how to use our portal, where to get resources from, marketing resources, but also how to hold discovery conversations. Which personas do we want to speak to? What challenges do they face? And what objections might you get? Now, one of the early objections actually that we find when we're working with new partners is, oh, they said they've already got a solution. It could be any of the application security solutions. Now, if they've already got an application solution, security solution, that means two things to us. Number one, they're already thinking about security. That's a great prospect. And number two, they've probably already got a budget for a security tool as well. So that's actually a green light, because we can help and we can solve more of their problems under that same budget. So it's not something where we'd say, oh, right, well, you've already got something, let's go. It's something where we can dig in further. What we'd then do, if you are a reseller that's got a technical team or a technical overlay, is actually enable you on our not for resale license. That would involve some early training and access to the platform so that your team can really get a big understanding of the platform and actually first-hand use of the platform as well. And this really helps when you're having those initial technical conversations. And then it's about pipeline. So we'll have some targeted account sessions, we'll plan accounts, and we'll actually work on those accounts together, understanding their current state, where they want to get to, and then we'll try and get them into pilot to understand the real value of Snyk. And then if you are a partner which is also thinking about implementation services, you may already be doing DevSecOps transformations or cloud transformations, and adding security to that solution would really help you bring more value, also more billable hours for you into that service offering as well. So that's the kind of loose agenda that we'd kind of undergo once we decide to work together. But this is critical. We do not expect you to be an expert straight away. We know you're working with lots of vendors. We know it's hard to do all of the learning that you need to do. So what we like to do is actually, let's talk about some initial opportunities. If we've got pipeline together, then obviously you can invest more time in actually learning, and we can help you along the way as well. The first few interactions might just be, hey, I've got a great idea for a customer. Let's speak about this customer and try and target that customer with the Snyk ROIs together. From that building pipeline, we then might decide, actually, this is good. We can really generate some pipeline. Let's invest in the training. Let's invest in the certifications, and let's really go out there and push this. So it's always a win-win on that side of things as well. Okay, just to talk through the partner tiers and how we're going to work, I'd just like to invite Alex to let you know about that. If you just tell me next slide when you're ready, Alex.
Yes, thanks, Paul. I also noticed we've got a few questions in Q&A, so would you prefer to answer them now, or we can answer them?
Yeah, let's just answer those now. Where are we there?
So we've got, how is the rate of false positives, and how does Snyk avoid false positives? Okay,
so when we talk about false positives, the first thing is, and we can have a more technical version of this later, what is false positive? There's two definitions that we usually think. One is not important to me, and one is not a vulnerability. If we're talking about not important to me, what we can actually do is allow you to ignore these vulnerabilities. If we're talking about not actually a vulnerability, what we can do is change the models underneath it to say, actually, we've spotted something incorrect here. But the thing is, we get very low to 0 false positives as it is, because our static analysis solution is based off the open source modules that we take into the database. Now, if you think about it, Snyk has got the biggest database around of open source vulnerabilities. We know which version the vulnerability was introduced, whether it was a 0-day or a version, and then which version the fix was added. And we know the CWE, or the type of vulnerability. So what we do, we train our model on those open source projects. That model is then or sent to the customer's code to look for similar types of vulnerabilities. Because of the way we train our model, we've got a wide variety of coding standards, coding languages, and a wide variety of problems. And that builds a very accurate model. It's not like other static analysis solutions where you create your own rules, and that rule set can be downloaded or shared. This is built entirely from our ML models. We can incidentally add our own rules as well, because sometimes there's certain coding styles that we want to look for within our customers. But generally, that's how we achieve very low false positives.
Brilliant.
Okay, the next question, is Snyk available air-gapped as well? So what we do is enable a number of on-premise components. The on-premise components can do much of the work to ensure that your IP is maintained on your actual environment. But the results are still passed up to the Snyk SaaS website. So what we would do is we'd speak to the customer who has that question, and we'd ask what their reason is. Is it a compliance reason? Is it a regional reason? We want to understand where they want to be. We've got a number of hosting options: single tenant, multi-tenant. But the thing is, we don't do a fully air-gapped solution. We do ensure, though, with our components that any IP of the customer can stay on their environment should they choose. Now, there are certain requirements to running some of those components, and as such, the opportunity has to be of a certain size. But let's just have that conversation, understand what the customer wants, and from there we can work out what is the best solution. Okay, the strength of Snyk compared to Sonatype. Right, so I kind of mentioned that before, and that's how our ML model builds the rules to find the vulnerabilities in the code. If we've got a Sonatype, actually what happens is you're loading your rule sets. You have someone who manages it, changes the tolerances for the number of false positives to the number of false negatives that we find, and we try and work from there. But Snyk static analysis, or Snyk code, actually manages all of that for you. So first of all, you've got no management. It's just set up to point at your code. Second of all, we can scan in many different places. We can scan on your local machine, in the CI/CD, in the user interface. And we can also scan every single pull request to look at the code you're changing to make sure it's adding no new vulnerabilities as well. So there's these things to do with speed and accuracy that are the major components, but there's also things to do with developer workflow as well.
So if I may, Paul, I think if we take the rest towards the end and let Alex finish your presentation first.
Oh, yes, because there is quite a lot. That's probably a good point, Alex. Yes, please take it away.
Thanks, Paul. Okay, so yes, the next couple of slides, I'll take you through the Snyk Partner Program, the tiers, what's available for each tier, and then sort of the metrics that we require for you to gain access to each tier. So next slide, please, Paul. Yeah, so Snyk has 3 partner tiers: Silver, Gold, and Platinum. Once a submission to become a partner has been approved, all partners are automatically onboarded as Silver. Every tier has access to the partner portal, where you can gain things like certifications, access to the deal reg portal, marketing materials, much more. I think there was a few questions around competitive analysis. There's some really good battle cards on there as well. So once we see that investment in Snyk from our partners, and then also by working with the Snyk partner team and Nuaware, we can then look to upgrade to either gold or platinum. One more click, please, Paul.
Boom.
Yeah. So again, based on the commitment to become a Snyk partner and also the value in the Snyk sales and the certified individuals, like you can see here, the metrics that we require each partner to hit or advance through the tiers. So mainly this is to do with source and influenced opportunities, and then also the sales and technical certifications. We do have another slide on this afterwards. So as you can also see by the percentage breakdown at the bottom, so our partners can unlock greater discounts on Snyk solutions with additional Snyk resource aligned, depending on the tier, and then also the level of opportunity involvement. So this could be a sourced deal, completely new to Snyk. This could be an influence deal where you're working very, very closely with our sales team, but it's something that we were already aware of, or a fulfillment deal where we at Snyk are looking to advance the partnership that we hold with you as individual partners, and then work with you at that level. Next, please, Paul. I think it might be, yeah, one more. There we go. So additional incentives for everyone that has taken the time to join this webinar and beyond. So any individual that can complete our technical certification by the end of the year, which Paul will take you through on another slide, will receive a box of Snyk branded goodies, or as we like to coin it, a swag bag. So please feel free to nominate whether it's yourself or someone within your team that you think this would be relevant for. If they want a load of merch with some good looking Snyk logos on there, we're here.
As modeled by me.
Yeah, there you go. So you also should all have received a poll link requesting you to nominate customers. So if you've got customers to nominate that you think Snyk would be relevant for, and can book a meeting with that interested customer for Snyk, or a Snyk account manager to attend and support you on that call, we've got a $50 voucher for those individuals that book the meeting. So please get nominating, and please do, I appreciate this. This isn't a one-time offer. Please reach out afterwards to either Nuaware, myself, or the rest of the Snyk channel team if you'd like to discuss this further. But the more customers we can engage with now before the end of the year puts us in a really good position for a partnership moving forward. Plus then, if those meetings result in a closed won opportunity, we'll be increasing the discounts available regardless of partner tier by up to 10% for the opportunities that close in the first half of next year. So again, please reach out, please work with the Snyk partner team, with the Nuaware team if you want to discuss this further, and add your nominated customers to the poll. Let's get things started. But that's me done now, Paul. Thank you.
Excellent. And that is a great way to kind of introduce pipeline to Snyk. But obviously what we want are those long-term relationships. So as soon as we've signed that first one, let's work on a plan to work into the future. Okay, so the training certification, I'll just be quick on this. Basically, we have some online certifications for sales, which is a sales professional, pre-sales, which is a technical professional. Now, the pre-sales, you'll learn how to use your NFR, how to set it up with some demonstration apps. The demonstration apps are from Snyk and from OWASP, and how to actually perform a demo to a customer. Now, we don't just want you to go through and click all the buttons and features. What it is a targeted demo to try and really discover what the customer wants and the customer problems, and then just do some short snippet kind of demonstrations as well. And you'll learn that in that course. And then the implementation professional, that's for when you're thinking about deploying Snyk yourself, providing a service wrap around the Snyk's licenses, or as I mentioned before, perhaps building Snyk into any of your existing service offerings. DevSecOps transformations, cloud migrations are two of the best ones to build Snyk into as well. So that's the first part, the online certifications, and that can really kind of help you get up to speed with the Snyk platform. So yeah, as soon as you're signed up to the portal, that's when you'll get access to all of that. Okay, now it's time for the Q&A. So I'll go back to the Q&A and start answering some of these.
So just a quick word on the poll. I think a lot of people, if they need clarification, they can always put it in the chat. But No harm in nominating a customer, even if you think the opportunity will not materialize. Regardless of that, don't leave the $50 voucher on the table and not nominate. So that's the first thing I would say. Second is all that we need after the nomination right now is the name of the customer. So you have more than one customer, just enter a comma after every name and just keep nominating, right? So I see that a few people have already done that. So please continue to do that as we progress, and you stand a chance to win the $50 voucher. Over to you, Paul, for the questions.
Okay.
I
So
think,
the first,
sorry, Paul, just to jump in, just off the back of what Patesh said there as well, just to discuss the Snyk freemium tool and the amount of information that we can actually work with our partners to evaluate essentially where we know there's already sort of individuals within that customer that are already using Snyk on the free tool. Obviously, moving forward, we'll need a partnership agreement in place, but there's definitely a conversation to be had, even if you think it's a very, very early stage Snyk prospect. We have 2.3 million developers using the Snyk freemium tool worldwide. So there's usually someone within a customer that's already seeing the benefits of Snyk. So let's obviously use that as a way to introduce an early stage opportunity.
Absolutely. So many I think there's about how many developers using the platform now? Over 2 million.
Yeah.
So there's often somebody at least just using it for themselves in a business. Okay, the first question is about licensing. So we license per product per developer. Those developers are not necessarily people who log into the platform. They are people who contribute to the code. So we look at the Git repositories on a 90-day rolling window. We see who's contributing code. They're the people that need licensing. What that means in effect is the security team, the observability team, or the compliance team can actually log in and use the reports of the platform, but they're not contributing to the code, so they don't need to be licensed. Okay, next one. Is it a SaaS solution or can be deployed on customer environment? I think I mentioned all that before. We've got some on-premise components, but they all still at some point need to talk to our SaaS service. We can ensure that the customer maintains their IP on their own environments, though. Does it do IAST, SAST, and DAST? It does SAST. So we don't touch IAST and DAST. For those, we do have partnerships with the like of Stackhawk, which can help us achieve that. Now, going forward, actually, Snyk, if you look at the website, we have just released Snyk App Risk. That is Snyk's ASPM tool. So now going forward, and this may be towards the end of the first quarter next year, we'll be able to integrate reports from other tools as well and pull that into a whole dashboard which shows that application risk as a whole. Some of these tools could be IAST or DAST tools as well. It depends on which integrations we build and which integrations our partners build. So please go and have a look at Snyk App Risk to see where we're heading next with this platform. Please provide a comparison with other competitive products. Okay, as Alex said, on the portal, what we've got is full battle cards when you're competitively position this with other vendors. What we usually say as a whole, without knowing which vendors, is Snyk has the broadest set of capabilities and the deepest set of integrations across the whole application development lifecycle. That means that we do have competitors in each of our point products. That could be SCA, that could be SaaS, that could be IAC or container. But there's nothing out there that has the set of capabilities that Snyk has. When we're talking about individual point products, we'll probably have to do that at a different stage rather than covering it on this call. But there are differences and battle cards that can help you have those conversations in a competitive scenario. Do we have a Snyk instance in Saudi Arabia? That's not something we have yet. We have instances in the US and the EU at the moment. But that is something that we will look at. And another thing that we may be looking at going forward are single instance deployments on any AWS or perhaps other cloud environment going forward as well. But that's not something we have today. What's the average customer deal size and duration? I don't know this one.
I can probably jump in here,
Do you
Paul.
know anything? Just
Yeah,
the technical parts for me. I'm sorry.
that's absolutely fine. To be honest, it depends on vertical and it depends on industry. So what we found from Snyk, if we look at Snyk 4 years ago, it was very much technology organizations, very, very heavily utilizing the cloud, really heavily utilizing their own software to define their own go-to-market. Whereas actually what we look at now today is every organization is looking to utilize their own software to define their go-to-market. So a pharmaceutical company or a retailer or even a law firm probably wasn't a good fit for Snyk 4 years ago. Whereas now Snyk's gone from a nice to have to a need to have in across every single vertical and industry. So we license per developer, and developer ratio for Snyk is a really good metric to define the size of the deal. Some companies can be a 200 employee organization that have 199 developers. So it really does depend on that. The average deal size for us in SMB is around 40K. The average deal size for us in enterprise is 1 million plus. And we have online referenced customers, anything from a 200 employee bank to a Salesforce of the world or a AWS of the world. So I appreciate it. I think every vendor would probably say, what's your key metric or your key go-to-market in terms of customer? But it really is every single customer now, just given the world that we live in today. So hopefully that answers the question.
Yeah, that is a huge variety in average deal size. So yeah, perhaps it will more depend on your customer base, who you're reaching out to. And like I say, just look for that developer count as your metrics for what to expect as a deal size with your customers. Okay, can we replace existing checkmarks customers with Snyk? We do this quite often. It's a case where people have been with checkmarks for a while. They want to try something new. Snyk can help them with Snyk code, which in some respects is more accurate and faster, but also they get the extra capabilities as well, and that developer first focus and the CI/CD integration. So quite a lot of times we are replacing existing AppSec vendors. As I say, that means they're already security conscious and they already have a budget. If you've got a customer, what you're thinking about might want to look at Snyk, who perhaps using checkmarks, come and give us a shout and we can kind of work out how to go and speak to that customer. Excellent. Are there any more questions or comments then?
If I may, Paul, I'm just asking on behalf of partners because I mean, I had these questions when I first heard about Snyk. So as you know, like from a developer or a persona standpoint, there are quite a few people in the company that you could open this conversation with, but primarily it sits with the development team. So as a partner, what are the first, say, the top 3 things we should look for as qualifying questions? So anything that easily swings the opportunity into becoming a qualified one, and then it favors Snyk or something like that. Can you shed some light on that?
Yeah, so what we usually do when we're speaking with new customers, as I said before, we've got to decide, first of all, are they building applications which are critical to their business? If they are, then we want to understand actually what's the size of the development team. And, if we're talking over 10 developers, it starts to get a little bit interested. Over maybe 20 or 30 developers, it becomes a very good opportunity because the savings are really for the business, related to the number of developers and therefore the criticality of the application that they're making. What we like to find out is perhaps how often they release software. Are they already thinking or working in that DevOps methodology, releasing multiple times a day? Are they on the cloud with their application, or are they thinking of moving to the cloud in future? These are all initial great kind of cues to understand should we have a full discovery session. In a full discovery session, we like to understand the languages that they use, the processes, their current security tools. More important than current security tools, however, are their security processes. That is, what do they do when they find a vulnerability? Do they just create a report? Do they try and fix it? Does it often stop releases? How do they relate that back to the developers and actually monitor and track when things are fixed? So the processes that go over the tools sometimes are more important than the actual tools they're using themselves. Now, as we work as a partner, we've got a great document that can help you work or build out discovery sessions, the questions to ask, the kind of research to do before the conversation in the company and the people you're speaking to, and actually what to do in follow-up questions, really digging deep with that customer as well. So we're happy to walk you through how we do discovery sessions. Of course, you've done this for lots of vendors and you're professionals yourself. We don't want to teach you from the start, but just how to change that into a Snyk conversation. Excellent. Well, that was a lot of questions, and I'm really happy with the interaction that we've had today. Thanks for inviting us on, Pritesh. It's been a great session.
Yeah, I think no more questions which are unanswered. So okay for us to end the polls as well as end the webinar. Thank you everybody for joining. It was a pleasure hosting you. You will receive an email with the webinar recording, so feel free to circulate this with your team members who could not attend and could not make it. And also reach out if you want to have a specific session just for your company and signing up as a partner. We see that a few people are already interested and have booked some follow-up. So all in all, very, very promising. Thank you so much for your support, Paul, Alex, Ugur, Roshni, and the Nuaware team. Have a good rest of the Thursday and see you soon.
Excellent. Have a great day. Thanks for joining us. Hope to speak to you soon.
Thank you.
Bye-bye now.
Thank you. Bye.
Oh, bye.